Twisting the throttle. How hard can it be, right? Most riders don't even think about it until their bike suddenly does this. Turns out, throttle control isn't just about grabbing and twisting it. How you hold your throttle directly affects how precisely and safely you can control your motorcycle. Today, we'll go over the most common throttle mistakes motorcycle riders make, how to fix them, and a few exercises that will help you turn that theoretical knowledge into real muscle memory. Hopefully, after watching this video, you'll never find yourself in such a situation, completely losing your bike because of some silly, easily avoidable mistake in throttle control. If you are watching this channel for the first time, my name is Andrei Bodrov. I'm your new favorite motorcycle instructor here on YouTube, and also I make online courses that help riders develop better skills and confidence on the bike. Our flagship program, King of the Road, includes over 40 practical exercises that strengthen every major riding skill, transforming you into a much safer, more confident rider in just 9 weeks. By the end of the course, I can guarantee you'll ride better than most people who claim to have been riding for years. If that sounds interesting, check the link in the description. First, let's quickly outline the most basic and common problems, which we can have due to bad throttle control. The first one happens when we open the throttle too fast. If we twist it too much too quickly, the rear tire can lose traction and the back of the bike can start sliding. On a powerful enough motorcycle, it can happen in a split second, especially on a wet or dirty pavement. The second thing to beware is the so-called whiskey throttle. It usually happens somewhat like this. A rider gives a bit too much gas, the bike suddenly lurches forward, throwing the rider back like this, which makes him open the throttle even more. The rider panics, can't release the throttle anymore because he holds on to dear life, and completely loses control. Usually, after the whole ordeal, the bike ends up stuck in someone's fence. The third mishap is an uncontrolled wheelie. Again, our rider accidentally gives a bit too much of the throttle, the front end unexpectedly rises up, the rider doesn't know how to react properly, and the bike loops. And the fourth mistake happens if we chop the throttle. In this case, at some point, for whatever reason, our rider suddenly shuts the gas completely, which causes the equally sudden jolt of engine braking. At least it can throw the bike off the intended path, and at most it can high-side and trebuchet the rider over the hills and far away. I heard Mexicans find it useful for some reason. One more mistake happens during braking. Sometimes, especially with new riders, when they are applying the front brake, they forget to close the throttle completely. It means while the front wheel is slowing the bike down, the rear one keeps pushing it forward, effectively eating away the grip from the front. This usually ends up with the front tire skidding and the bike low-siding, exactly like in this example here. Of course, there are all sorts of combinations of those problems, like a rider can open the throttle a bit too fast, start sliding, and then in a panic completely shut it off, causing a high side. Or a whiskey throttle, causing a sudden wheelie and looping the bike. Now let's see what we can do to prevent all those unfortunate mishaps and keep our bike nice and stable on the road. Let's start with the seemingly very small and simple thing – how we grip our throttle. What a lot of people do, especially beginner riders, is they grab the throttle like this. At first glance, that makes sense. We grip the throttle, then twist it like this and job's a good one. Our bike goes brrrr and accelerates, which is exactly what we wanted. But there are two hidden problems with this kind of grip. First is that if later at some point we need to brake quickly, we have to close the throttle, then reposition our hand and then only apply the brake. This takes extra time, which we might not have if we have to brake really quickly, like if a car turns in front of us or something like that. Alternatively, we might do what a lot of newbies do. Go for the front brake right away while our throttle is still open. and that will almost certainly end up in a low-side crash, just like we saw previously. The second problem is that when we roll on the throttle like this, and the bike starts to accelerate, our body naturally gets pulled back because of this acceleration, which causes the throttle to open even more. That's exactly how the whiskey throttle happens. Now, what we can do instead is to hold the throttle differently, with a straight wrist, like this. This way, as we close the throttle, we can start braking almost simultaneously. More so, we eliminate this possibility of accidentally doing the whiskey throttle. Now, if our body gets suddenly pulled back under acceleration, the throttle automatically closes instead of opening even more. That way, we have a far smaller chance of getting stuck in someone's fence. Another important thing about holding the throttle is to avoid having a death grip on it. Instead, we can hold it sort of like we would hold an egg, firmly enough so it doesn't slip away from our grip, but not so hard that we'd crush it. This is important for several reasons. First, a bit looser grip allows our hands and arms to be nice and relaxed, which in turn lets the front wheel self-steer and self-stabilize as it's intended. Second, if we have a very tight grip on the handlebars, all the engine vibrations go straight into our arms, so they go numb and tired much faster. And finally, with this super tight grip, our arms simply get tired sooner and lose sensitivity on the controls. Motorcycles are designed in such a way that they are constantly self-stabilizing. As soon as the bike starts moving forward, it gains balance, and our job is basically to interfere with it as little as possible. The more freedom we give the steering, the better. Alright, all this sounds pretty nice, but you might already see a problem with this grip, right? What if at some point we need to accelerate really fast? With a straight wrist we can't easily open the throttle fully. Look at this awkward angle. Surely that won't do. However, if we dug a bit deeper, we'll soon see that this problem basically gets resolved by itself. If we need a lot of throttle, that means we want to accelerate fast, right? And if we are accelerating fast, we may as well lean our body forward, like this. That reduces wind drag, shifts more weight to the front wheel, which helps to prevent wheelies, and look at that! Suddenly you can open the throttle fully without getting wonky angles in the wrist. One more small detail. It's better to lean forward just a moment before acceleration, not while we are already doing it. That gives us the best body position to resist the acceleration forces, and our wrist will already be in the correct place by the time we start rolling on the throttle. As a very good example, we can look at Moto Gymkhana riders. They lean forward on acceleration and lean back when braking. That helps with proper weight distribution on both wheels and allows them to use the throttle to its full extent without any problem. Now that we've covered that, let's see how we can have even more precision and control over the throttle. To be a bit more smooth and precise, in addition to simply twisting the throttle with our wrist, we can also use our fingers, like this. That little motion gives us much finer control. Plus, if we rest one or two fingers on the brake lever, our brain can use the feedback from those fingers to sense exactly how much we've rolled the throttle. This, by the way, is a subjective technique. Some people find it useful and some not, so you'll have to find for yourself. Another little trick for steadier throttle control, which some riders find useful: if we have fixed bar end weights or hand guards, we can rest part of our palm on them. Just like with the brake lever, they act like a reference point for our brain, so we can feel a bit better how much we've opened or closed the throttle. And now that we've gone through all those tips, it is time to turn all this theory into muscle memory. So let's do a few exercises. But before we jump into it, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Ultramax Cell, the company behind those nice base layers you've seen me wear in some of my videos. They are not just have this fancy texture for show. It's a unique polypropylene fiber with a special 3D honeycomb structure, This design gives the short a compression fit, so it stays perfectly in place and it helps your body maintain the comfortable temperature no matter the weather. In hot conditions, it pulls moisture away from your skin and speeds up evaporative cooling, as long as you are wearing ventilated gear over it. In cold weather, that same honeycomb shape traps warm air around your body and provides better insulation than typical thermal layers. Ultramax Cell thermal gear really does go a step beyond standard base layers. If you want to check them out, I'll leave a link in the description. Alright, let's go back to our exercises. Although most of exercises in our courses develop better throttle control in one way or another, today we'll do 3, which I especially like. The first one you can do every time you ride. It is very straightforward and simple. Just try accelerating and decelerating super smoothly. Open and close the throttle very slowly, far slower than you do it usually. Over time, this will help you develop a better feel for the throttle, and you'll be able to make tiny, precise adjustments. Try using the techniques we talked about earlier, twisting the throttle slightly with your fingers, resting part of your palm on the bar end, or keeping 1 or 2 fingers on the brake lever. See what feels best for you, and what allows you better, smoother throttle input. You don't necessarily need to use everything we discussed, but some of it you certainly might find useful. The second exercise we'll do today is the slow cone width. I have a whole separate video about it, so I won't go too deep into details here. The key is to keep the bike in the friction zone, keep the throttle slightly open and steady at the same time, no matter how much you move the handlebars. Listen to your engine sound. It should stay more or less consistent. If the revs go up and down as you swing the handlebars from side to side, first of all, check your throttle cable. It should be routed properly, move freely without binding anywhere, and have a correct slack. Otherwise, as you turn the handlebars, it can have more or less tension, so your RPM will go up and down. If the cable's fine, pay close attention to your wrist. You might be unintentionally rolling the throttle on and off while steering. Try to make sure your arms don't extend completely when you are steering, so your elbows remain bent all the time, at least a tiny bit. Lean a bit forward or sit closer to the tank if needed. And remember that it is important to keep our arms and hands as loose and relaxed as possible, so don't grip the handlebars too tight, and try to relax. And the third exercise, which is a bit more advanced, is the fast figure 8. It is a Moto Gymkhana style drill, during which we don't use our clutch at all, so all your throttle input goes directly to the rear wheel. If you are jockey on the gas, the bike will react the same way. Set up 2 cones about 40 to 50 feet apart and start making large figure 8s around them. At first, make them very big and wide, just to get comfortable. Stay in first gear, keep your arms relaxed, turn your head a lot and look through the turn. Don't look down at the pavement. Once you feel confident, start working on your throttle. As you exit the corner and the bike starts to stand up, slowly roll the throttle on. Then roll it off gently before entering the next turn. You can combine this with light rear brake pressure for extra smoothness, just like we discussed in one of our previous videos. But that's not mandatory. You can just concentrate on the throttle if you want. After some time, as you become more and more confident, you can start leaning the bike more and accelerate harder. As you feel more and more comfortable, start rolling the throttle on and off a little quicker, but always progressively, never jerky. Eventually, you'll be surprised how much throttle you can use even at a pretty big lean angles, as long as you do it smoothly. This fast figure 8 is an amazing exercise. Take your time with it, don't rush it. After you master it, I can guarantee you'll be a completely different rider. Alright, we've discussed quite a lot of stuff today. Who would have thought all this can be said just about such a simple thing as how to hold and twist the throttle? And on this positive note, it's time to wrap it up. Thank you for watching, ride safely and have a wonderful day! Bye!